Talks. One more time and again, we're here to talk to you about paranoid delusions and some of the effects that it has on people. So, we spoke about bipolar, the highs, the lows, a person that feels threatened, difficulty concentrating, and having false beliefs. That's what the delusions is about. How people have hallucinations are some of the symptoms, and they're not solely defined by paranoid delusion, but can be a result. So, Dr. Sharmi is with me, and I have Dr. Latoya with me today. And we are always here to help improve the overall mental health, to help you get on the path of wellness. So we left off with abnormal behaviors. We was talking about that. Please go back and look at some of the previous videos to catch up with us and get some more information. So, for example, we left off last week with OCD, and today we'll give some more clarity to that. So, I'm gonna pass the mic to Dr. Latoya.
Well, hello, good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever you are in the world tuning in. Thank you so much for being here with us. And I'm Latoya Nabadi. And it is my pleasure to be here before you guys. And so we have been discussing several topics this month for Mental Health Awareness Month. And so we talked about mood disorders, as Nigeria said. We spoke about some specific mood disorders. We've been talking about paranoid delusions, and we've been talking about other delusional disorders as well. We've discussed OCD, and today we're going to delve a little bit deeper into OCD. And so OCD is not a delusional disorder, but can people can suffer from OCD if they have a delusional disorder. So we want to clarify some things so that you guys won't be confused about it. But then we're also going to talk about some other delusional disorders as well. Grandiosity, and then I believe also somatic. And so when it comes to OCD, we really want you guys to understand that OCD stands for obsessive compulsive disorder, right? And so it's common, it's chronic, it's long lasting disorder where a person can experience uncontrollable and reoccurring thoughts. And so we talked about kind of reoccurring thoughts before, but these reoccurring thoughts are called obsessions. And so, not necessarily ruminating thoughts, but more of obsessions. And then they also experience behaviors or compulsions, right? And so, where they will obsess about something over and over again, and then they'll have the compulsion. So, they have a desire, right, to complete that. And so they have like the urge and to do it, and it's repeated over and over and over again. And so people with OCD will have either obsessions, compulsions, or both. And so these symptoms can and most often impact their whole aspect of life. So work, school, personal relationships, at home. This is not something that we should wear as a badge of honor, right? If you
Yeah,
have it,
yeah,
we definitely sympathize with you, and we want you to make the best of your life. But sometimes people can use certain words kind of flippantly, right? Oh,
yeah.
my OCD is kicking
OCD is
in, and
kicking
for
in.
people who
Yeah,
really truly struggle with OCD,
right. That's not
there's
funny. Yeah.
right. It's not funny at all. They're struggling. They're suffering. And so they have obsessions or fears, right? Fears of germs or contamination. They have fears about religion or fears about harm, right? They can have aggression toward an aggressive thoughts towards others or toward themselves, right? And they can have the obsessions about having things in perfect order or having things symmetrical. And so in their mind, you could be talking to a person with OCD, and they're not listening to a word you're saying because they're more focused on how your buttons are arranged on your shirt, or
Right,
they may
right,
be more focused on, oh my God, I gotta rearrange these magazines that's on this table because it's like inside it's driving them crazy. That's how they feel. And
right,
so if you could imagine being a person who can't even complete a conversation or can't be involved with your children or can't have meaningful conversations and relationships with people because they're always overly occupied or obsessing
right,
about different things. And
right.
so and then they have the compulsion. So the compulsion is the repetitive behavior or the patterns that they have the urge to do, right? So they have the thought first and then they have the compulsion. And so if you see people who have like excessive hand washing or excessive cleaning,
Yeah.
I have patients, I have one in particular who takes about 5 or 6 showers a day.
Wow.
Um, Not because he's doing a work that requires him to
Requires.
get dirty, or where he's outside and sweating and all that. No, like he just inwardly he feels unclean, and if he comes in contact with somebody or a thing, then he has to, that compulsion continues, he has to continue. So it may be 10 showers one day. And so if you think about what that would do to a person's skin, and how your skin is your first barrier of protection against other like organisms. And so if your the integrity of your skin is compromised, that increases your risk for infection. And
Right.
so a person who has to constantly wash their hands over and over and over again, that can get in the way of work. It can get in the way of relationships. Some people can't even go to sleep at night because they have to go downstairs and check the locks 3 times, or they have
Right.
to check their
Yeah.
refrigerator 3 times. And so we want you to understand that, okay, we all at nighttime, like, oh man, did I lock the door? Let me go
Right.
downstairs
Right.
and let me make sure that the house is locked up. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking
Right.
about when the person cannot go to sleep, cannot, or if they sleep, they will wake up dead out of their sleep and make sure that they check the locks 3 times, or that they have to take a certain amount of steps away from the door, or they have to make sure that the tissue is just right on the roll a certain way. And so all of these types of behaviors, all of these obsessions and compulsions pretty much run their entire life, and it's not something they're happy about, it's not something they want. And it's very hard or difficult to treat in the area of
Right.
psychiatry as well. So we just wanted to shed light on what OCD is, give some terminology to it, and just to kind of give you a deeper understanding of what it was that we were talking about with OCD.
Great. And so now that Latoya has explained that particular concept, we also want to discuss somatic disorder and really what that is. And when you're thinking about somatic disorder, then you have to also think about the concepts of how it is considered a mental health condition. And when I'm talking about the whole concept of somatic, it's a physical element, which means that your mind, even though, and for some people, they probably do have symptoms, but then the way that you think about whatever this sickness or illness may be is more out of proportion than it is portionable, right? And so when you think about somatic, then I want you to take it from the notion that it is those individuals who can think themselves sick, for lack of a
Mm.
better term,
Mm-hmm.
meaning that you have told your mind has told you that you're dealing with particular elements, and your brain begin to release certain chemicals to the body to begin to have the body to react based on what your mind is speaking to it, right?
Correct.
And so many people don't understand the concept of somatic disorder, right? This is how some people can go to the doctor. And listen, let me say this. I want you to share this. I want you to share the broadcast, because many people deal with so many different dynamics and they don't necessarily understand what is going on in their life. So we do want to take
Mm-hmm.
a moment to say, hey, if this is not for you, it may be for somebody else,
Yeah.
right? We
Yeah.
don't take it away that everybody knows particular symptoms and things that are going on in their life or even with their
Correct.
mental health. And so that's why we are taking a moment to kind of, to talk about these particular things, because somatic affects so many different individuals, right? And people don't understand that it's literally a disorder that's really
Mm-hmm.
affecting their lives. And so, like I said, when you're thinking about the concepts of somatic disorder, then you have to understand that it is a mental condition, number one, because you begin to tell your mind begins to tell your body, oh, you're sick. And so then now, before you know it, your body begins to take on the tone of what your
Mm-hmm.
mind has developed and told your body to do. And this
Yes.
is why we have to understand how powerful the mind is. When we don't understand how powerful the mind is, then we have no idea how to fight against something that's really not
Mm-hmm.
a reality, right?
Right.
Right.
so many people, some being somatic, it's just that it's like a part of being paranoid delusional, which we talked about in previous sessions, right? We talked about just that paranoia that comes with so many different things. And so and for us biblical people, it's called, not only from a psychological standpoint, catastrophic thinking, but it's called evil forebodings, right? We
Mhm.
see that playing out in the book of Proverbs when the Bible talks about evil forebodings. And so
Yeah.
when you think about that, it's nothing but seeing yourself already going through certain things, and it's not a real reality. But
Right.
your mind is telling you that these particular things is real. And so
Mhm.
I want you to take that notion with your body. So for instance, if my mind tells me, oh, I'm sick, like even during COVID, some
Mhm.
people mind was telling them they
Mm.
had COVID,
They had
right?
COVID,
Yeah.
right?
So now,
Right.
before you know it, your body begins to take on these symptoms because your mind is constantly thinking and thinking and thinking of all the particular things that you are seeing. This is why we are firm believers. Whatever you see, whatever you hear, your body will begin to react to that,
Come
right?
This
on.
is true.
And
Yeah.
so you have to understand that your eyes and your ears, all of these are
Yeah.
gates to your soul, right? And you have
Mhm.
to understand the gates that begin to cause your soul, right, to begin to react concerning to what your mind is telling it, right?
Mhm.
And so this is how we have to believe that there is more to us than beneath the eye. You know,
Right.
Mhm.
really
Right.
come to
Mhm.
a concept that we start believing in these things, because a somatic individual will say, well, I'm sick, and then you go to the doctor, and although you having all these symptoms, they will test you for everything you said, and they
Mhm.
was like, well, we can't find nothing. But you
Mhm.
like, no, I'm telling you, these things is happening. You got aches
Yeah.
in your body, you got pain here, and you got pain there, and all of these things are your reality. But nevertheless, when you go to try to get them checked out, they can't find anything.
That's right.
But you're telling yourself, I know something is wrong with me. Could it just be your mind? Your mind is playing tricks on you, right? And I hate to say that, but it becomes a
Ah,
reality because our minds can begin to play tricks on us in such a way where we are believing things that are not
that's
necessarily
This is
it.
true.
true.
And because the mind is so powerful, all the mind need is a
That's
seed.
it.
Mm.
That's all it needs. It just needs a seed. And once that seed begins to develop
Mhm.
itself, you begin to get fruit from that
That's
seed,
it.
right? And so, 'cause and this is how I tell people when it comes to our thinking. When your mind, when you grab a hold to something, that implantation is a
Mhm.
seed. And I like how psychology say it becomes an
Right.
imprint on the
Yeah.
Yeah.
psyche,
Yeah.
right? So when you think about the imprintation, then you have to know that all the thoughts come after that imprintation are doing what? It's watering
That's
that
right.
seed.
Yeah.
Okay. And now that seed is getting watered. Well, show me, how's it being watered? By the way of your
Mhm.
thoughts, what you're
Mhm.
thinking on. So if you're constantly thinking on things that are not good, things that are not prosperous, things that are not giving you hope, think on these things. But if you're not thinking on things that's
Right.
pure, if you're not thinking on love, if you're not thinking on, I mean, really, I tell people all the time, for us that are in the church, listen, meditation did not come from the enemy. It really did not, right? It's just that the world caught a hold to it before the
That's
church
right.
did. That's all. Let's just tell the
That's right.
truth, anyhow. And so now took it on, and now they made it to be something that God had already told us to do. Well, show me, where do you get that from? I'm glad you asked me. Philippians 4, right?
Let
It
me
says, think
think.
on these things, whatever's
Mhm.
pure,
Hmm.
whatever's of good report. Is there
That's
anything
good.
Mhm.
praiseworthy? It tells us the things that we ought to think on. Well, why would you think God tell us to think on such things? Because he understood the power of a
Yes.
seed. He understood that whatever you begin to think on is going to begin to play out in
Mhm.
your life. And so when we're talking about somatic disorders, then we have to understand that the more you think yourself sick, and people don't realize that you can think
Right.
yourself
This is
sick,
true.
you can think yourself ill. We were actually having discussion last week, Latoya, Nigeria, and I. We were having discussion last week on how this woman, she convinced herself that she was
Right.
pregnant until the to the reality of it, that she really started showing and having symptoms like she was really pregnant. Why? Because her mind began to kick in and
Mm-hmm.
tell her to believe something that was not necessarily
Mm-hmm.
true. And this is what we call somatic,
Right.
right? A somatic disorder. And so you have so many individuals out there not understanding the
Mm-hmm.
fact that it's their mind that they are really
Yeah.
battling with. You're not sick, ma'am. You're not sick, sir, but you can think yourself
This is true.
sick. And to the point in reality where you can literally think yourself in the
Right,
This
grave.
is
right,
true.
We don't necessarily believe that, but do the research because it's true. You can think yourself to your death bed. Why? Because your mind has so much power that you don't even realize how powerful your mind is. Do you understand that everything was created with a
right,
thought?
Mm-hmm. Everything
Everything.
started with a thought.
Everything you see in life was created by a
Mm-hmm.
thought. All that thought did was begin to manifest
Right.
itself because people began to act on the
Mm-hmm.
thought, right? At your house you stand in, the chair, the clothes that you go by, the Gucci purse, the Louis Vuitton, the red bottom shoes. Everything was a thought in somebody's mind that was
That's
acted
right.
upon. Just think on that when it comes to somatic disorder.
Mm-hmm.
It's a thought
Yeah.
process. And so your mind began to tell you, I'm sick. I got this ache. I got this pain over here. Oh, I think I got
right,
cancer. So now you thought you had
right.
cancer, and before you know it, lumps
That's
and
right.
bumps and
That's
all these
right.
things begin to manifest themselves. And you like, I told, no, 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 no,
Mm-hmm.
no. First of all, even if it's a possibility that you think that, I think your mind needs to change to the fact that, oh, I'm
Come
healed.
on
I
now.
don't have what they said, but this is what
That's
I'm going to
right.
say. And you begin to speak those things into existence. This is not just a church thing, this is a principle
Mm-hmm.
thing. And when we can understand the principles and how they flow, I truly believe that we as individuals will understand how to really navigate our
Mm-hmm.
lives. Come on, your thought is your
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
campus,
yes.
right? It's your campus of life. Your thought pattern, however your thoughts are, that's where your body is going to lead you. Wherever your thoughts are, is going to release
Mm-hmm.
chemicals in your brain, from your brain into your body, and the body's going to move here and it's going to move there. And so we have to learn how to train our thought
Yeah.
processors. All right.
That's
That
good.
was
That is
good.
so
That was
good.
real good.
Yes.
She is the queen of mind mastery. So she
Yes.
knows all about the mind and how it works and how it operates. Well done, Dr. Shirley. So another situation we're going to talk about is delusion of grandeur. I face this in narcissist behavior all day being in entertainment. I mean, I didn't even know it was a real like name for it. You just kind of say, why they act like that? That's my favorite line. Why do you act like that? So I love
Mm-hmm.
safe space talks to help answer the questions of why they act like that. So delusion of grandeur is a belief that a person has a particular level of greatness that others do not have. Some may have an impression that they're famous, which is, what I deal with all the time. Some believe that they're immortal. They Signs of a person who has delusion of grandeur is they're very dismissive. I know y'all like, attitude towards people is like they're beneath them, or they're just kind of like, you, here's the famous word in the industry. Do you know who I am? Right? Do
Mm-hmm.
you know who I am? No, for real. It's for real. And when you try to talk to someone who is dealing with this grandeur, they'll get defensive. They'll
Mm-hmm.
get angry with you. They can get violent. They get angry. They're not going to talk to you no more, because the concept is that you don't believe what they believe, even though it's outrageous, it is false, because they can't grasp that they're in this delusion of grandeur, right? A delusion that it's hard to kind of say, that's not true without causing conflict or
Mm-hmm.
confrontation. So it's always good to kind of just, you can't allow people to go on like that. So one of the things is that you have to try to gain their trust. Okay, you have to gain their trust, and some of the reasons why people suffer from this is because of abandonment when they were young. Their trauma came from abandonment. Their trauma came from, you may hear sons say, my father beat me when I was young, or beatings or any kind of parental attack, and then they isolate themselves. And in that form of isolation, which we talked about, that's not good. And this is why it's not good, because they isolate themselves to protect themselves, and then they depend on themselves. And then once they start depending on themselves, they create this image, a better, stronger image of themselves to defend themselves. Like, I'm
Mm-hmm.
great. I'm a superhero. I have superpowers. I'm rich. I'm famous. Everybody loves me. Where all that me comes from. So that's what happens. So to help someone suffering with that, you can definitely take them to go see a therapist, a doctor, and they have to have cognitive behavior situations, or they get medication for their depression or anxiety. They can um, have talk therapy, because you want to get them to see what they don't see. So talk therapy will help them identify those areas where they having these delusions of grandeur are not true. So one, if you know someone who's dealing with that, try to gain their trust, get them help. Sometimes they may have to be hospitalized if they're a danger to themselves or others.
Yeah.
Get them cognitive behavior therapy, get them on some medication, but don't allow it to go, because anything you neglect will become disastrous in its time being unattended to. You can't have a plant and never water it, right? So you want to make sure that if you know someone who's dealing with that, and in the industry, you have people like who attacked Kanye West, who has identified as bipolar, which is a symptom of that. But we see him, out there saying he's the greatest, he's the greatest. But I'm just here to say he's a billionaire, so I don't know. I'm sure he had some issues, but I guess for him it worked. So I'm gonna pass the mic to Latoya, and I'm gonna work on my
So,
delusions of grandeur and see if I can be a billionaire.
So, one of the things that we want you to understand when it comes to the delusion of grandeur is that you've got to understand the root cause, right? So, sometimes it can be associated with bipolar disorder or mania. Sometimes it could be associated with schizoaffective disorder, bipolar type, and in other conditions as well. It could be just a personality trait, with a personality disorder like narcissism.
Right.
um, and so, depending on what the root of it is or what condition a person have, they may or may not require medication. If it's a personality disorder, then hey, medication gonna help that. You've got to you got to go through some intense therapy. But if it is as a result of or a symptom of a bipolar disorder and mania, then definitely you want to make sure that you're are seeing a psychiatrist and that you are medicated, or if it's someone that you definitely want to encourage them to be seen and just be seen in any regard, right? Because it's important for people to be evaluated and know for certain what it is that they're dealing with. But I do like the fact that Nigeria brought up the childhood or the experiences in life, and so trauma is actually at the root of all of these conditions that we're talking about today.
Right.
Trauma is linked to OCD. Trauma is linked to somatic disorders. Trauma is linked to delusions of grandeur. So, as a coping mechanism, right? When
Right.
people experience trauma, they may start to have certain behaviors or certain behavior patterns. And as a child, when you're going through certain traumas, these are things that people will start to do to be able to deal with the trauma that they're dealing with. So survival, right? And so
Right.
when you think about something like OCD, it's a fear-based type of condition. And so in order for me to feel safe, I may have to lock my doors, 2 or 3
Right.
times. If a
Right.
person has had an intruder or have been robbed, they may develop OCD, right? They may have OCD and PTSD. And so they may develop
Mm,
that because in the
that's good.
beginning, I'm doing this as a coping strategy because I need to know that I'm safe in my home. But then it progresses. And so when it comes to the delusions of grandeur, yes, because I was rejected, because I was mistreated, because I was abused, now my self-esteem has to be inflated to the point where it's beyond normal because I'm overcompensating or I'm coping with feeling
Right.
small and
Right.
feeling like I didn't have a voice and feeling like, I was
Yeah.
not important, I wasn't seen. And so, and then when it comes to the somatic disorders, right? A lot of times, if you think about as a kid, a kid may not get any attention until they're sick.
Right.
Once they're sick, even if it's negative attention, it's still attention nonetheless. And so if I can say, oh, I got a tummy ache, then mommy is going to come to me and talk to me and spend time with me. If I say, oh, I got a headache and I'm throwing up, then the teachers and then people are
Yeah.
are going to give me the attention that I really should have, right? So
Right.
we're supposed to nurture our children, right? But if a kid is growing up in an environment where they're not nurtured, they may start developing some of these behaviors so that they can get the attention that they have been wired to receive. And so
Mhm.
then it becomes a condition because it becomes a pattern and it becomes a part of their coping strategy and a part of their personality, a part of the condition. And so at the root of a lot of these conditions we're talking about is trauma, and we're going to have to do a whole segment on trauma alone
Yeah.
because so many different conditions and disorders are a result or impacted
Definitely.
by trauma.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
that's good. Listen, what they
Yeah.
just said. But as we are wrapping this up, we just wanted to actually come today and just kind of touch on some things that we actually touched on last week, but we just want to give a little more detail concerning certain symptoms because everything
Yeah.
has a root,
mhm,
right? And when we don't understand the root of it, then we don't understand how to actually deal with whatever the issue or problem that arises. And so, one of the things we want to bring today is
Right.
symptoms because many people don't understand that, anytime somebody tells me, well, such and such is happening, one of the things I try to look for is the root
mhm,
cause of what's happening. Because even when you medicate something, you're medicating the symptom, you're not
Yeah.
necessarily dealing with
Right.
the root,
yeah,
right? And so many people don't understand why things constantly come back in their lives. And it's because you're medicating the symptom and not dealing with the
yeah,
root issue. And so right now we wanted to bring some dynamics and some dialogue concerning the particular symptoms that people may be experiencing. But like Latoya said, what are some root causes? And in a nutshell, many of these things come from traumatic experiences that people have dealt with, and they never understood the root issues on why they even began to
yeah,
deal with certain issues in their life, right? And so as we're wrapping this up today, we just want to say that Safe Space Talks come to bring you the realities and truths of the things that are literally going on. We know we're not the only one
Right.
out here that's coming with dialogue, but what we do understand and know is that we don't only just bring you things from a psychological standpoint or from educational standpoint. I think what sets us apart from many is that we actually have dealt with the issues, but we have overcome the
That part.
issues, right? and somebody talking to you about something that they are still experiencing and they're still trying to get over, or even people that's talking to you about something that never experienced it before. We're not saying that they don't have a level of education or things or tools that they can present to you to be able to teach you something, but it's really good when you have individuals who have experienced it, but nonetheless they have been healed back from these particular issues, right?
Yeah.
And so there's a level, and even a level of confidence and healing that you can expect, because the ones who are speaking it to you, they've been there, done it, and they can write a
Come on.
check for it, right?
Yeah.
Us, we've been there, we done it, and we can tell you these are tools and these are principles that we know that can work in your life. And so although we didn't bring you some tools and strategies today, we did give you the dynamics on some things that you can look for, or even do your
Yeah.
own research. I used to have a bishop that used to say, don't take my word for it, go research it for
Right.
yourself,
Yeah.
right? So that's what we say,
I've
don't
heard
just
for it.
take our
Yeah.
word for it, go research it for yourself, and you will see that the things that we bring to you today, and whenever we bring you something, it's not from a lack of research, it's not from a lack of knowledge, right? It's the fact that we have not only researched and not only, went out there, looked it up, found out particular things, but it's dynamics that we have
Mm-hmm.
experienced. And so we can say, hey, we know if we give you some tools and strategies, we know they work. But what many people don't realize is that
Do the
you
work.
have to do your
Yeah,
part.
that's right.
You have to
Yeah.
Yeah.
do that. We give you all the knowledge, even when you go to a
Mm-hmm.
psychologist or a therapist or a counselor or a doctor, whatever you're gonna go through to. Guess what? It's still up to you whether or not you are going to put in the
Mm-hmm.
work. And that's what we did. We put in the work, right? We put in the
That's right.
work. So we put in the work to be able to tell you, hey, yeah, you may be going through this, but this is not the
That's
end
right.
of all. You can go through this and you can still be victorious in the end, where you can help somebody else, right? I don't know about you, but I don't like people really helping me that ain't free
Right.
Yeah.
themselves.
That
That's
part.
just me. People like people to help them, and they
Right.
ain't free. Like somebody gonna teach you how to be a millionaire and you not a millionaire. How you doing that,
Right.
ma'am,
Right.
sir?
Right.
It's impossible. I'm
Yeah.
serious, because all you giving me is stuff that you was not even able
That's
to
right.
implement yourself. So how do you know it worked?
Right. When
How
you
do you
haven't
know
Right.
something
tested it.
work if you ain't been
That's
freed from
it.
it, right? So the principles that we give, and we can give you the strategies, we know they work because we have experienced them, and we can tell you, hey, this is how people become masters at what they
Mm-hmm.
do, right? Because they have experienced it and they have
Right.
overcame it, right? I don't want a teacher to teach me something you
Right.
ain't doing it. You teach me not to do something, but
Right.
you doing it. Something's wrong
Yeah.
with
Right.
that, right? That's dysfunctional teaching. And we have a lot of dysfunctional teaching out here. Trust me, we do. It's a lot out here. But at Safe Space Talks, we're not
That's
those
it.
individuals.
Correct.
We're not those dysfunctional teachers that are going to teach you something and we ourselves have not
That's
Mm-hmm.
overcame
right.
it. I didn't say we're going through it. I say that we're overcome. So that means that we
That's
overcame
right.
it, right? Overcome by the
For the Lamb
blood
and the
of the
word
Lamb and
of
the
our
word of our
testimony.
testimony.
That's right.
And so only how you can have a testimony if you've been
Yes,
victorious
that's
with
right.
it. Y'all, come
Yeah.
on. And so therefore, at Safe Space Talks, we bring you victory. And that's what sets us apart from many individuals out there that are teaching on mental wellness and mental health. We don't just give you all of that dynamics, all of this. We say, hey, yeah, you may be going through this, you may be experiencing that, but there is freedom. I'm talking about real
Mm-hmm.
freedom. And that's what we're
Yeah.
here to do. And so, Safe Space Talks, we thank you for joining us. We have so much in store. This is Mental Health Month, right? May is Mental Health Month. Really, I mean, it's really Mental Health Month, right? And so, we're here to bring you dynamics that's going to just help your overall mental health, not just in the
Right.
month of May,
Yeah.
but every Wednesday we are here. And so, hey, do us a favor, share the broadcast, share. And we even want your comments. We want you to be able to comment,
Mm-hmm.
get in touch with us.
Mm-hmm.
There go our email right there, safespacetalks@gmail.com. Listen, y'all, we started this just on a word, on a thought. We jumped out and we started it, and so we're building, and we're, everybody has to have a
That's right.
process, right? And so we say thank you for being a part of our journey. Thank you for just being a part of those that will listen in to and share with others. We appreciate you and we thank
Yes.
you.
Yes.
Thank you so much for
Thank
joining
you.
us.